great. And next up for who will be our second panelist in this panel is Dr. Lanette Sobel. And so she's going to come up now for her presentation. Are you okay leaving the Food Waste Prevention Week stuff up? Yeah. All right, perfect.
All right, thank you guys for having me here today. I appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit about composting, my favorite topic. So a little bit about us. Fertile Earth Worm Farm, we are the longest running composting operation in South Florida. We've been doing what we've been doing for over 17 years, and we actually have 111 years of composting experience on our team, including like Dr. Monica Hampton, who is one of our consultants. So we've already diverted tens of millions of pounds of food from our landfills. And a little bit about us, I have a bunch of letters behind my name, but basically I'm a plant doctor by training with a focus on soil and water science. And I was a professor of circular economies for a university in Mexico. And I actually taught the first doctoral level course on principles of circular economies for, well, it was the second in the world and the first one taught in Spanish. So I don't like to assume that people know what composting is, so I like to explain it. According to Miami-Dade County, their definition of composting is the managed biological decomposition of organic materials by microorganisms that stabilizes the organic fraction to material that can be easily and safely be stored, handled, and used in an environmentally acceptable manner. Composting is recycling organic matter. That's what it is. So that's actually a picture of some of the food that we take. In the bottom corner, that is what we do at our farm. That's actually a picture of the windrows, us building a windrow at our farm. The second one is our fabulous worms that help us turn all this food into probably the best known organic fertilizer on the planet, worm castings, AKA worm poop. And then we use that compost and we grow things in it. So why is it important? We've already touched upon this a little bit, but in all the presentations that I do, I always like to explain like how a landfill works, because I was never taught this in school, and I went to school for 25 years. And I think this is something that we should teach in school, because this is what changed my life when I learned about how a landfill works. So in a modern landfill, and not all landfills are modern, they take the waste and they cover it with something, fill dirt, mulch, etc. And that's to block out water and air. So what ends up happening is that you have this anaerobic environment. So an environment with little, if no oxygen in it. And when things break down in that environment, it produces methane gas. So the two things you kind of need for composting are air and water. So in these environments, things do break down, but they break down very slowly. There was actually a study done where they went down to a landfill 50 years, and you could still read the newspaper. There was still a hot dog with hot dog bun intact. And what breaks down is the organic matter, so the food that's going into these landfills. And that's generating methane. And the methane, as most of us know, is about 80 times worse than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas emission. So that's the first reason why food doesn't belong in the landfill. Secondly, what ends up happening because you're blocking out moisture is that the moisture is coming from the food, which is trickling down, picking up heavy metals and toxins and creating this toxic soup called leachate. Like some people already mentioned, there's communities that already have lost their access to their own water supplies because it's been contaminated with this leachate. When I was learning about this, I learned it from a professor, Dr. Daniel Miroff at Florida Atlantic University. He is a wastewater expert, and he was working on how to remediate leachate, and that's not something that we've figured out yet. So what we do is that we're monitoring our groundwater supplies for leachate contamination, because the other problem with the system is that what keeps everything in, and hopefully doesn't come out, but what keeps everything in is the plastic liner. Unfortunately, that plastic liner also has the lifespan of about 50 years before it starts breaking down. So these landfills are not solutions. They're temporary holding cells, and they're really issues for our future generations, and of course for us as well. So what I want to do is change this paradigm of take, make, waste, and bring it back to what nature intended, which is a circle, because there is no such thing as waste. In nature, what is waste in one cycle is a resource for another. And I really like what Andy was saying earlier about using our words. I don't use the word food waste. I don't like the word food waste. I don't believe in the word food waste because it's not waste. So I say food scraps because it's a resource. And I think that the government needs to remember that more than anyone else, but us too. So, and it's the research is aligning. We're finding out that methane coming from landfills is actually much worse than we had previously thought. This is what the USA EPA has characterized our municipal solid waste stream as. And as you'll see, food here is 21.6%. But when you add up all the organic matter, the yard trimmings, the wood, the paperboard products, over 60% is actually compostable. And again, why does composting matter? We already talked about dramatically reducing methane and fighting climate change, and protecting our water supplies. It protects our food security, it improves our air quality, it provides food independence, improves the water retention of our soils, it eliminates or reduces chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and regenerates our soil. So what are some options? There's a lot of options. So the first one to me is what we do at Fertile Earth is try and send it to the highest and best use first. And to me, that's feed people. Secondly, we feed animals. And the third, we recycle it into soil. So a couple of the ones that are highlighted in green is what we do here at Fertile Earth. We work with a network of farmers. So it's not just our farm that gets the food, but we have farmers that need this stuff. They want this stuff. They have animals to feed. They have soil, they have nutrients that they need to replenish in their soil. So, and we don't have soil. Anyone ever here trying to dig a hole in your backyard? What happens? What? Rocks. Yeah, we're on coral rock. So we have a very, very little amount of actual organic matter before you hit the rock. So we need soil. And we also have in Miami-Dade County, one of the largest agricultural enterprises in the country. We have a palm tree plantation, a palm tree farm. And we sell palm trees to all over the world. And in the wintertime, South Florida is the breadbasket because we're the only ones that can really grow things all winter long outside of greenhouses. So we have a big agricultural community that wants this stuff. So we love working with farmers. We love helping them. We feed about 700 chickens a week, which if you know what's going on with eggs right now, that's, yeah, we got the hookup with the eggs. So we also do depackaging. So we work with food distributors. And this is a huge source of food that we can divert from the landfills. So we'll get 20 tons of papaya, 100 tons of onions at a time, maybe 3 tons of rambutan, etc. And a lot of the time, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just too ripe to sell. So maybe 5 or 10% actually have to get composted. The rest just needs to get eaten in a couple days. It won't last on a a truck to New York and sit on a shelf for a week, but it's totally, absolutely edible now. So we have a network of a couple hundred people in our neighborhood, and we put the call out and we let them know what we have. And sometimes we have meat. We have all sorts of things, and people will come in droves and they'll take it. And sometimes we don't even have to compost it at all. Like literally the community takes it all. And we will work with Farm Share and Feeding South Florida and local food banks as well. And then we have a residential drop-off hub, which I'll explain a little bit more in the future. A lot of places have centralized composting sites. So for instance, like the LA County has one that processes about 500,000 tons of material per year. But I'm more of a fan of decentralized because it also reduces the amount of transportation that it takes to do what we do. And of course, there's backyard composting. Miami-Dade, we actually do have a program where you can sit on a lecture about composting, and you can get a voucher and actually get a home composting system. So if you have room in your backyard, that's also an option. And of course, there's companies like Renewable that have a residential pickup service, and they'll actually pick up at your front door. Oops. It's not going. So this is a couple of pictures about what we do. I apologize for the one in the middle, but I definitely wanted to show that to you because that is a full roasting pig. A full roasting pig. So at our farm, we have composted so many things, such as cow heads and goat heads and things like parts of animals that I've never even heard of. And one of the things that like really shocked me is like how many full roasting pigs we're getting. And unfortunately, this isn't something that food banks will take because what they want is things proportioned out for families. So we roasted one at our farm and we gave some away. But it's incredible the amount of waste that we're producing and there's no reason for it. So I asked the food distributors, like, why are we getting these things? And the food distributor told me that somebody had bought these pigs, they had left the facility, and then they came back and they returned the pigs. But since it had been out of refrigeration for a couple hours, they couldn't resell them. So these pigs took 3 days for us to defrost. So I think we have a problem. So on the left, you'll see papayas and beautiful, beautiful dragon fruit. I mean, we would get cases and cases of this beautiful dragon fruit that you go to the store and one dragon fruit is $7. So our neighbors love us. And then of course we feed animals. We fed basically every single animal you can think of, chickens and cows and bears and tigers, oh my. So really quickly, I want to talk about the Everglades Earth Cycle. This is a grant with the USDA that we just got for $500,000. It's in conjunction with the Village of Pinecrest and Raquel Regalado District 7 and the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians and Love the Everglades Movement, which is a nonprofit led by a Miccosukee. It is to expand our composting hubs. We have a compost hub in Pinecrest, and this is a free service for residents. So anybody who collects their food scraps, and we actually have these bins, and you can see them over there, that we distribute for free to the community. And they can bring that to our site, and then we will take care of the composting for them. And what's really cool about this grant is that actually $200,000 is earmarked to community outreach and education because, yeah, because if you don't make it clear like why it matters, people aren't going to change their behavior. If you don't let them know why putting your banana peel in one bucket versus this bucket makes a difference, they're really not going to do it. So community outreach and education, I think, is the absolute foundation, the absolute necessity of what we have to do. And this is really cool too, because it's very easy for other municipalities to jump on board. Like obviously we're doing community outreach and education, not just to District 7 of Miami-Dade, like when we were in the Miami Herald or WLRN, it covers all of South Florida. So we're picking up the brunt of this outreach so that other communities can get involved, other municipalities can jump on board at a very minimal cost. And what's really also cool about this is that the compost goes to the Miccosukee School Gardens. They have a community garden that's actually swampy meadows in the bottom. And it's going to also go to some community gardens or some family gardens on the tree islands, and might even possibly go to build up the tree islands in the Everglades that are obviously like eroding. And this has massive effects for the entire watershed because soil cleans. So by doing this, we're actually improving the water quality of our bays, which I think is pretty impressive. So how do we scale? Change the rules. The way the rules are written here, especially in Miami-Dade County, are so that composting does not exist. My company is an anomaly. Miami-Dade County has not permitted a composting facility in over 30 years. We're able to survive because we operate as a farm. We are a bona fide agriculture operation, and there's a state exemption for composting. But guess what? That state exemption doesn't say we can sell compost, so the county tells us we cannot. In addition, we got pulled into Durham, which is our Department of Environmental and Regulatory Management a couple weeks ago, and we're given the pow-pow because we're selling soil blends. Why is this a problem? So compost is not actually considered an agricultural product. It's considered municipal solid waste. Although if you go back to the definition I gave of compost at the very beginning, it is a stable biological product that's supposed to be safe for the environment. So in my opinion, this is a very, very political issue. In Miami-Dade County, in order for you to get a commercial composting permit, it's the same permit that's required from metal recyclers and C&D recyclers and can cost millions of dollars. Yes, we have a water table we need to protect, but there are ways to do it in a way that facilitates composting instead of absolutely destroying it. There is a bond ordinance that Miami-Dade County has, and this has been a stickler in our side for a really long time. I thought this issue would have been over when the incinerator burned down, but it's not. We actually got a grant with the county, and the county gave the money back to the USDA 2 years ago because they said that this was in conflict with the bond ordinance. So for an incinerator, and I know I don't completely understand what's going on, but they are concerned about competition with their waste system. And luckily last year, they deemed us not significant enough to be of concern, but it is concerning if you're trying to expand composting in Miami-Dade. In Palm Beach, they actually have something called flow control. They have an incinerator that was overbuilt, so they need to feed the machine. And so they own all of the waste that's being produced in Palm Beach County. And there was a little composter, there were worm composting called Let It Rot. And my Palm Beach County actually shut them down because they were picking up food scraps from residents. So the rules were designed not to have composting, and that's what really needs to change, in my opinion. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if we don't speak up, if we don't ask our municipalities, if we don't ask our elected officials to do something about it and change the rules will stay the same, and the rules are made to feed the machine. So if you want to feed the soil, speak up. Thank you.